On direct, you said you were on patrol the night of September 24th, 2010, right?
That's right.
Now, you also said that you saw what you believed to be Miss Sullivan's car drive by while you were on patrol.
Yes, it was Sullivan's car.
And you also stated that you believed Miss Sullivan's car was speeding.
It was, yes.
But you didn't pull the car over, did you?
Before I could decide what to do, I was called downtown. So no.
So you didn't pull that car over even though they were breaking the law?
Right, the call took priority.
So now, after you attended to that call, you arrived at the scene of this crash, isn't that correct?
Yes, I did.
When you arrived on the scene, you began talking to Miss Dawson.
After directing the EMTs to attend to Miss Sullivan, yes.
And after you were talking to Miss Dawson, Vanessa Sullivan's mom arrived on the scene, is that right?
That's right, Miss Sullivan was there.
And Vanessa Sullivan's mom is the district attorney of Midlands, right?
Yes, she's a very well-respected prosecutor.
And when Miss Sullivan arrived at the scene, she found out that her daughter had just died, didn't she?
As far as I understand, that's what happened.
And after she found that out, she was upset, wasn't she?
She was understandably distressed. Yes.
She started yelling.
Yes, at some point she was yelling.
She started yelling at Miss Dawson.
That's right, and in fact, this is what prompted me to administer the field sobriety test, to make sure that there were objective conclusions about what happened that night, so it didn't come down to he said, she said.
Well, Miss Sullivan started yelling at Miss Dawson things like, "I'm going to make your
Objection,
life..."
Your Honor, hearsay.
Sorry, again, I'd like to rephrase the question. I'm sorry, repeat the question to me a second.
Miss Sullivan started yelling at Miss Dawson things like, "I'm going to make your life a living hell."
I'm going to sustain the objection.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Okay, so if you have a response, let's just...
Yes, Your Honor. This is an exception to hearsay under Rule 802. Under Rule 802, as this is an excited utterance. Mrs. Sullivan, the district attorney, had just arrived upon the scene, and she found out that her daughter was dead. Just after finding out that information was when she yelled at these things at Miss Dawson. She was under the stress of the event of finding out that her only child had just died, and these statements are in regards to that information.
We're constructively out of the presence of the jury. What is the statement that you wish to get at now? We're out of the
Yes, the district attorney yelled at Miss Dawson, "I'm going to make your life a living hell."
May I respond, Your Honor?
Sure.
Not enough foundation has been laid that this is in fact an excited utterance. We've not laid down a foundational timeline as to when this statement occurred in relation to Miss Sullivan's finding out about her daughter.
Response, Your Honor?
Sure. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and let you proceed. However, I'd like you to lay a foundation as has been the contention of the opposing counsel. So if you could ask a couple more questions to lay a foundation for this exception, then I'll allow that.
Yes, Your Honor.
So that's the rule.
When Miss Sullivan arrived on the scene, she found out her daughter had just died. Is that right?
That's right.
And she was upset when she found out this information.
Understandably so.
And just after she found that out, she started yelling at Miss Dawson.
Yes.
She started yelling at Miss Dawson things like, "I'm going to make your life a living hell."
Which is why I administered the test, so that it wouldn't come down to hearsay and accusations.
Now, the first test that you administered to Miss Dawson was the horizontal gaze status test.
This was the second component.
Okay, well, this test, as you said on direct, is a physiological test.
That's right.
So you would agree with me that this test could be affected by an injury to the head, right?
Not in this case. A horizontal nystagmus test is used to determine whether or not someone's been drinking and is not actually influenced by head trauma.
But this test monitors the movement of someone's eyes, isn't that right?
Yes, and the way in which it's performed is intended to exclude any kind of environmental factor like head trauma.
Well, Miss Dawson wasn't evaluated by EMTs, was she?
Not as far as I know, no.
So you went ahead and administered the test under the assumption that Miss Dawson was fine.
I administered the test knowing that even if she had head trauma, it would not affect the horizontal gaze nystagmus test.
The other tests you gave Miss Dawson were walking tests, to walk in a straight line and to stand on one leg. Is that right?
Those are two of the components, yes.
Now, while Miss Dawson was taking these tests, she was still being yelled at by the district attorney. Is that right?
some points, the district attorney was yelling, yes.
And she also was taking these tests on the wet pavement, right?
Yes, she was. But as far as I can see, nobody else was having trouble walking.
Well, you yourself said that you had trouble, that you almost slipped, haven't you?
I never slipped though, and that's the key really. After multiple attempts, the defendant was unable to walk in a straight line even for a few steps, whereas the rest of us were able to stay on our feet the whole time despite some difficulty.
Even still, you did have difficulty standing on that road, didn't you?
Not much.
When you had these difficulties, you weren't being yelled at, were you?
Well, I mean, there was yelling going on.
You hadn't just been in a car accident, had you?
No, I hadn't.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about Canyon Road itself. Canyon Road is a pretty curvy road, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
There's lots of trees around that road, aren't there?
There.
And the guardrail on Canyon Road isn't really sufficient, is it?
Objection, Your Honor, improper opinion.
I'm gonna allow that opinion, so.
The guardrail on Canyon Road isn't really sufficient. It doesn't extend very far, does it?
At the time, I don't think it extended. There was a guardrail present, so
But it didn't extend very far on the curve of that road, did it?
I mean, it depends on from where you're measuring. The guardrail itself is relatively long.
Now, on the night of the accident, it was late, wasn't it?
It was about 1 a.m.
So it was dark,
Yes, it was.
and it was raining, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And it was raining quite heavily.
Yes, it was pouring.
And Canyon Road was curvy, and there's trees around it, and it was slippery, wasn't it?
Objection, Your Honor, compound question.
Sustained.
Now, because it was raining, Canyon Road was pretty slippery that night, wasn't it?
I mean, more slippery than a dry road, yes.
Your Honor, pass it.
No redirect, Your Honor.
The state calls Dr. Avery Smith to